It's 3 a.m. You're still awake. You tell yourself you'll sleep soon. Just one more episode, one more scroll. But somewhere inside your skull, a clock has already started counting down. And the real answer to what happens next is far stranger than tiredness. Sleep feels optional. It feels like a pause button you can hit whenever you want. You skip it for a deadline. You skip it for a flight. You skip it because the night felt too short and the world felt too loud to stop moving. But your brain does not see sleep as optional. It sees sleep as maintenance. And maintenance that gets delayed does not just wait patiently in a queue. In 1964, a 17-year-old named Randy Gardner decided to stay awake for as long as humanly possible. No drugs, no shortcuts. Just willpower and two friends keeping him company so he wouldn't cheat. He lasted 264 hours. That's 11 days. Stanford sleep researcher William Dement heard about the attempt partway through and rushed in to monitor him, half out of scientific curiosity and half out of concern that a teenager was about to break his own mind. By day 3, Gardner couldn't focus his eyes. By day 4, he was hallucinating. He believed he was a famous football player. He saw a street sign turn into a person. His mood swirled from irritable to euphoric to blank. And yet, strangely, he never died. He recovered. He slept for about 14 hours and woke up mostly fine. So does that mean sleep deprivation isn't actually dangerous? Not quite. Because what happened inside his body tells a very different story than what happened on the outside. Every cell in your body runs on a rhythm. Scientists call it your circadian clock, a fancy way of saying your internal 24-hour schedule for when to repair, digest, and shut down. When you stay awake past that schedule, your brain doesn't just get sleepy. It starts pulling emergency levers. Cortisol rises. Blood sugar controls slip. Your immune system, the army meant to fight off infection, starts standing down instead of standing guard. In the 1980s, a researcher named Alan Rechtschaffen ran an experiment at the University of Chicago that would never be approved by an ethics board today. He kept rats completely awake using a rotating platform that dropped them into water the moment they dozed off. Every single rat died within 2 to 3 weeks. Not from exhaustion. Their bodies simply stopped being able to regulate temperature and fight infection. Total sleep deprivation in a rat is fatal faster than total food deprivation. You are not a rat on a spinning disc. Nobody is forcing your eyes open with electric shocks. But the mechanism inside you is the same one that killed those animals, just running in slow motion. Every all-nighter is a tiny rehearsal of that collapse. Here's the part most people never think about. Sleep isn't when your brain turns off. It's when your brain turns inward. During deep sleep, a system called the glymphatic system opens up like a drainage network, flushing toxic proteins out of your brain tissue. One of those proteins is called beta amyloid, the same protein linked to Alzheimer's disease. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker, who has spent decades studying sleep at UC Berkeley, found that even a single night of bad sleep increases beta amyloid buildup in the brain. Do that enough nights in a row, and you're not just tired. You're accumulating debris your brain never got the chance to clean out. Sound frightening? It should sound a little frightening. But this isn't a story about fear. It's a story about design. Why would humans and animals need to spend a third of their lives completely unconscious and vulnerable? Lying flat, unaware of predators, unable to run. From a survival standpoint, sleep seems like a terrible design, and yet every animal ever studied does it. Dolphins sleep with one half of their brain at a time, so they never fully lose consciousness. Even fruit flies, with brains smaller than a grain of sand, show measurable effects when they are deprived of sleep. If sleep comes with such a high cost, it must provide something incredibly valuable in return. So what is sleep really giving us? Memory, for one. When you learn something new, your brain doesn't file it away instantly. It stores it in short-term storage in a structure called the hippocampus, kind of like a full inbox. Sleep, especially deep sleep, moves those memories into long-term storage in the cortex, clearing space and locking in what you learned. Skip that step enough times, and you're not forgetful. You're unfiled. The information was never properly saved in the first place. There's also the emotional cost, the one nobody warns you about. Sleep-deprived brains show a hyperactive amygdala, the almond-shaped region that handles fear and threat detection. Functional imaging studies have shown that after a night of no sleep, this fear center becomes nearly 60% more reactive to negative images. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional control, goes quiet. It's like disconnecting the brakes from a car while flooring the accelerator. That's why exhaustion doesn't just make you tired, it makes you fragile, snappy, weepy over things that wouldn't normally register. Now think about how differently your ancestors treated the night. Before electric light existed, darkness meant one thing: stop. There was nothing to hunt, nothing to gather, nothing to build. The body's internal clock evolved around that darkness, tuned to a rhythm of sunlight and firelight that stayed mostly unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. Your ancestors didn't fight sleep, they surrendered to it, because staying awake in the dark meant staying alert for predators, and staying alert for predators without actually being able to see them was exhausting and pointless. Then came the light bulb. Suddenly, night stopped meaning stop. It started meaning more work, more scrolling, more light pouring into eyes that evolved to read darkness as a signal to shut down. Your biology never got the memo that the rules changed. So what actually happens if you never sleep? The truthful answer is your body starts treating wakefulness itself as an emergency. Within 24 hours, your reaction time slows to match someone legally drunk. Within 48 hours, your immune defenses weaken. Within a few days, your grip on reality starts to bend, the same way it did for a 17-year-old boy in a research lab in 1964. And if it ever became truly total, permanent, inescapable, your body would eventually shut down entirely, the same way it did for Rechtschaffen's rats. But here's the twist buried underneath all of that fear. Sleep was never your enemy. It was never the wasted third of your life you've been told to optimize away. It's the maintenance window your ancestors built their entire existence around, the nightly reset that scrubs your memories into permanence and washes the toxic buildup out of your skull. Every hour you steal from it isn't a productivity win. It's a withdrawal from an account that quietly charges compound interest. There's a reason certain jobs are built entirely around fighting this system. Long-haul truckers, night shift nurses, pilots crossing a dozen time zones in a single day. Researchers studying these groups have found something unsettling. Chronic short sleep doesn't just make people tired, it makes them impaired in ways they can't feel. In a landmark study, participants restricted to 6 hours of sleep a night for 2 weeks performed as poorly on cognitive tests as people who had been awake for 24 hours straight. The catch is that the 6-hour sleepers didn't feel that impaired. They rated themselves as only slightly sleepy, even while their reaction times crumbled. Your brain, it turns out, is a terrible judge of its own exhaustion. It adapts to feeling bad and starts calling that new low the new normal. Now picture what's happening on a cellular level while you insist you're handling things just fine. Your DNA itself responds to sleep loss. In a study led by researchers at the University of Surrey, participants who slept under 6 hours a night for 1 week showed changes in the activity of more than 700 genes. Genes tied to inflammation switched on. Genes tied to stress response ramped up. Genes involved in your immune system's ability to identify threats were quieted down. All of that from just 1 week of mildly shortened sleep. Your body isn't waiting for an 11-day extreme experiment to start reacting. It starts renegotiating its own blueprint after just a handful of short nights. Neuroscientists have found that during certain stages of sleep, the brain replays the day's events, but sped up, compressed, run in fast forward like a highlight reel. This replay strengthens the neural connections tied to what you learned, while letting weaker, less useful connections fade. In a very real sense, sleep decides what stays a part of you and what gets quietly deleted. Skip that process enough nights in a row, and the version of you built from yesterday's experiences never fully gets saved. You wake up carrying yesterday, but only in fragments. Tonight, when you tell yourself just one more episode, just one more scroll, remember what's actually being decided in that moment. Somewhere behind your eyes, a system that has run uninterrupted for millions of years is waiting for permission to begin. And whether you give it that permission is the strangest, most ancient decision you'll make all day.